Hello guys, I'm Super Ron. Welcome back to the channel. We're here again at the G unit and we've got my daily driver, my Mk5 Golf turbo diesel in because the air conditioning has recently stopped working, and in this sweltering heat we've had, I want to get it sorted. So spoiler alert, I have found the problem. It was not what I was expecting, and today we're going to fix it. So like I said, this is my daily driver. It's a 1.9 TDI PD engine and it has been an absolute trooper. I've had it for the last couple of years and it has now got 222,000 miles on the clock, still on the original engine, which is a testament to the German engineering, because I do give this a lot of abuse. I've done about 15,000 miles in it now and it just keeps on trucking. So I just want to get this little problem sorted out, because there's nothing worse than sitting there in traffic in a hot car. So the first thing I did when the air conditioning stopped working, I plugged in the VAGCOM just to see if there was any faults, any fault codes, because all these Volkswagens and Audis are really common for the pressure sender failing and then that cuts out the aircon. So I plugged it in, done a scan, but there was no faults whatsoever. So the next port of call is usually it's out of gas. There's a little leak somewhere, which is quite common on older cars like this. The little seals might have a tiny little pinprick, and over a few years the gas can leak out. So I took it to Quick Fit for a regas, because on their policy, if they recharge it and it doesn't lower the temperature coming out of the vents, they give you a full refund. So that's what I did. I took it down there, they regassed it, but there was no difference. So I got a full refund, life hack, and it is fully recharged. So the next thing I did was to look a bit further into VAGCOM. I started looking for fault codes again. There was no fault codes. So I went into the HVAC and went into the measuring block so I could see what each bit of the system was doing. I could check the pressure. That was fine. It has to be over 2 bar to work, so this is well above that. And next I checked whether the clutch was kicking in and out, and according to the car, it thought it was turning the aircon clutch on. And also there is a feedback section of this, so it shows you the amps that it's drawing, and that is the same as what it's desiring. So that is indicating there's nothing wrong with the air conditioning pump, that there must be a fault somewhere else. So I know it's got gas and I know the pump's working. So I went back to basics, got the voltmeter out and plugged into the wires that go into the air conditioning compressor, just to make sure there's not a broken wire, and the computer's just telling me what it thinks it should see. And sure enough, we had 12 volts there. So I thought it must be the clutch in the end, because the air conditioning pump, the pulley is turning all the time, but the pump is only turning when the air conditioning is turned on, which is why you get that extra draw when you turn the air conditioning on. So my next thought was to look at that, and that's where it got really interesting. I don't know if we're going to be able to see it from the top, so I'm going to jack it up, take the splash guard off and show you what I found. So that's, it's all uncovered. The air conditioning pump is right down, that's the alternator at the top, and those pipes going into the air conditioning pump run by the belt. Now what I noticed when you come down here, and there's the crank that drives the belt at the bottom, got some idlers and the alternator, but this is the air conditioning pump. And when I was looking at it, I noticed that the middle bolt here wasn't spinning when the pulley was spinning. And first of all, I thought this was a clutch. So when the aircon engaged, that locked the outer and the inner. But it turns out on these, this should be all one pulley. Like the crank pulley here, they have a rubber dampener between them to help with harmonics. So you've got a solid centre, then you've got a rubber beam all the way round, and you've got a metal outer that the belt runs on. And that's what this should be like. But I noticed the middle wasn't spinning. So I put my hand down and the pulley has come apart. So the belt's been running the outside of the pulley here, but this inside hasn't been running. So I've been really lucky that it didn't in fact fall off and wrap the belt around everything. If you look a bit closer, you can see the rubber membrane has just broken apart. And what I found sitting in the under tray down here was this little bit of rubber, and I think that was its final bit hanging on, and when we pressed the gas back up and the clutch kicked in, it came off. So I don't really know what's holding that on, but it's not connected to the pump at the minute. As you can see, the centre isn't spinning. It should be all spinning like this one, but that bolt is still. So I'm really lucky that this hasn't flung off. There's a couple of different compressors that go onto the Mk5, which made things a little bit confusing, but I found out what part number I needed, put that into eBay, and then went to the absolute cheapest one on there, and £17, we got this compressor free. Now, I wouldn't normally buy an aircon compressor from a scrapyard because these need to be kept crystal clean inside, all the pipes of the aircon, so any grit or anything in there is going to ruin the compressor. And as this one's just open and greasy, it's all just full of dirt and dust. But the only thing I want is the pulley on the end. So what my plan is to leave mine all in place. I know my system's already charged, already got refrigerant in it. All I need is the pulley, because on this one, the center turns with the compressor, how it should. Not like mine. So now we've got to try and get this pulley off, get mine off, and get this pulley on. See how easy that is. So good news, bad news time. Good news, got the pulley off. As I know I wasn't going to be using the compressor, I just kept cutting it down until I got the centre shaft out. And then I was finally able to get this out. But what I've found is, to take it apart, I wondered what these little grooves were in there. And that's you've got to get to this circlip underneath. And that's why it wasn't coming out. But good news again, this bit bolts off, so I know my pulley's okay. So if we can get mine off and bolt this onto my pump, this rubber seal here is the actual bit that's gone. So this bit is fine. We've just got to try and get mine off with the pulley intact. So I managed to get them off with the pulley in place, saving the pulley that's on the car. So this is how it should be. That connects to the compressor and this connects to the outer pulley. And then it's a dampening of the rubber in the middle, but they are joined together solid. This one has just been spinning on that. This bit come apart when I was taking it out because it's on there. But yeah, so this has just been spinning in there all this time. I'm really lucky it didn't come off. Lucky the pulley itself has got a big bearing on the back of it, which is what that circlip's for, holding it on. Lucky escape. So now let's try and get this one on the same way. Now I've had it apart, I understand why the pulley hadn't fallen out. This is what would be the end of the aircon compressor. And here's the actual pulley part of it, which has got a bearing in itself. And that sits on there, and then this circlip goes on there, but we broke the ridge off, so that's why the pulley hadn't come off, because the pulley itself and the belt drive was just acting like an idler. And then this would be inside. When this hits through, that engages. This bolt's on there, that's on there, and that should be connected to this, which has got its spline shaft inside, which locates on there. Oops. And that keeps it all spinning. But what you can see on this one, the bolt on the top snapped off when I undone it. But all that is to do is to keep this located on the splines. It's the splines that do all the work. So that goes on there, then the nut holds it to stop it coming off. And unfortunately, on the car, as you might have seen, the bolt snapped off this side as well. I've got it all back together, but the bearing and the three on the outside actually hold it all together. So that end bolt is more for assembly, just to hold that spline shaft on. So it should be alright. I might just put a little tack on there, just to stop it sliding off. I just thought I'd cut the shaft up of the other compressor, just see how deep the bolt goes, and no wonder they both snapped off. See how deep it is there? That's all Loctite in the end, all oozing around all the way out. So a little M6 bolt completely Loctited in, plus a swimming pool of Loctite at the end. No wonder they snapped off. And all it is to hold it, stop it pushing off the splines. Out came Mr. Mig, and I just put a little quick tack on there just to hold it on. If we ever need to get it off, we can grind that off. Hopefully I'll never have to visit this again. Nice cold aircon forevermore. So at the minute, outside temperature 20 degrees, footwell blower temperature 26. If we put the aircon on cold, full blast on the feet, see this temperature drop with the aircon. So the aircon is working perfectly, it's freezing the air as it comes through. And look at that, after a few minutes we are down to 4 degrees. It's absolutely freezing in here. And so that is mission complete. We've now got ice cold aircon back in the daily, so happy commuting for me from now on. It was a really strange one with that pulley coming apart. I hadn't seen anything like that before without catastrophic failure. Everything in the system was working. The solenoids, all the aircon gas system, everything was fine. Just the aircon compressor wasn't being rotated. Even though the pulley and the belt was going round, they just weren't connected to it. So very, very strange. But a nice cheap fix, £17 for the compressor. Even though I didn't use it, I just used the pulley. And a bit of a ghetto tack, just getting that snaps bolt off. But I'm sure you'd rather see me do loads of other cool stuff than spending hours and hours just to drill and tap that bolt out. Because as you see, I'm always super busy at Auto Shack, which does mean while we haven't been down here for a little while, we've still got plenty of projects. I'm trying to shuffle around, I'm getting through the house stuff, and we will be back down the G unit again doing some of these projects. I haven't missed all this messy second-hand parts, greasy work, so I'm gonna go and get cleaned up. But until next time, make sure you have fun.